This video will explain what you need to know for the literary analysis essay. So, the Department of English at Wallace State asks that you consider certain aspects of a work of literature as you read it to analyze that work of literature. Some of the things that you can consider are things like character, setting, theme, irony, symbol, tone, emotion, or a combination of these elements, or even some other elements that we'll talk about when we look at what literary criticism is. The English department at Wallace State asks that you use 4 sources for your literary analysis. The first source you read, of course, is the primary source. So whatever work you are analyzing is your primary source. You have 3 extra sources that you will use for your research to help you say something meaningful about the primary source, the source you are analyzing. So the secondary sources may include language that includes the title of the source you are analyzing, or they may be useful in other ways and may speak more generally about some literary element that you are interested in exploring in your analysis of the primary source, or some historical implication or social implication. So you might use sources that don't say anything directly about the primary source, but help you back up your points that you are making with a certain type of literary analysis. So the requirements for the literary analysis essay, of course, are to analyze. It reflects a higher level of thinking, so this is a more advanced type of writing than you may have done before. You will also be required to write in third person, which is the case for most academic essays. Your length of your essay is 600 to 900 words. If you go over 900 words, that is fine. You will write at least 5 paragraphs that should be good-sized paragraphs with a variety of sentence structures, and you should make sure that you do enough explaining of your own ideas and how those relate to the ideas of the sources you've used. And you're going to organize your paper, obviously, in a clear sequence with a logical order. Using an outline can help you do that. One thing that's different about writing a literary analysis is the verb tense that's required. You should use present tense verbs anytime you are writing about literature. And the reason for that is that every time you read a work of literature, you can read this same work 100 times in your life, and when you read it for the 100th time, the action will be happening again for you. It's just like when you watch a movie over and over again. Those characters are doing things right in front of you. So we talk about their behaviors, their actions, their thoughts in present tense. Now, you're going to be asked to consider one type of literary criticism as your focus for this essay. And there are many types of literary criticism. I'm going to describe a few for you, or a handful, and know that there are others. So some are more useful for a research essay, and some are not as useful. So anyway, there are many types. So I think of literary criticism as a type of way of looking at something, and so I think of them physically as a pair of glasses, the different types of literary criticism. So one type of literary criticism is a formalist criticism. So what you might consider for a formalist criticism are the words themselves. The way a formalist critic might look at a work of literature is as if that work exists independently of human input. So the words are super important. How words that have double meanings could enhance the meaning or put layers of meaning onto the work is really important. Words that are symbolic are really important, so you might consider that as well. So to describe something as red gives us a visual of what that item looks like, but red implies certain things. So look up symbols and colors when you are doing a formalist criticism, or really any kind of criticism where you encounter symbols. One sort of type of symbol really is an archetype. So an archetype is a little bigger than just one static symbol. An archetype is usually a character, a certain kind of character, or a type of character. So you have the archetypal hero, the archetypal villain. We always have spoken of Christ figures. I remember doing that in high school English. There was the person or the character who sacrificed himself for the common good. That was the archetypal Christ figure. So look for archetypes. Archetypes can also be situations or settings. So in Gothic literature, for example, an archetypal setting might be an old, creepy house that seems to have its own personality. The woods. So going into a forest, is the forest a friendly forest or not so friendly? Nature can go both ways. A quest is a kind of archetypal situation. When characters travel, they are often said to be on a quest if they meet certain criteria. Another type of criticism is psychological criticism. So this type of criticism became popular with the ideas of Freud. I don't know if you're familiar with Sigmund Freud, but a lot of his ideas about psychology originated in the works of literature that he had read. So these types of things sort of interacted in an interesting way, and really students of literature still read Freud into a lot of the works of literature that they may analyze and use Freud more than current psychologists do oftentimes. Another type of criticism is Marxist criticism. And Marxist criticism takes a look at social class or other parts of what it means to be a human in the world that is full of people with differences, and the implications of power within those differences. So that could be social class, and most frequently with Marxist criticism, it is a social class kind of thing, but we know that there are layers to what makes someone identify as one type of social class or another. So that is an interesting thing to explore in a work of literature. Feminist criticism also sort of layers in with social issues. So a lot of these types of criticism may overlap with one another. For example, a feminist criticism might also have some elements of historical criticism or psychological criticism as well. And I've already mentioned that the symbols that you see, even though a formalist critic might use symbols a lot, they might play into a healthy look at a feminist critique of a work as well. So again, we have historical criticism is another type of criticism that I mentioned when I was talking about Marxist criticism and feminist criticism as well. And it really is sort of, I think of it almost as the opposite of a formalist criticism, because it really does consider the author's motivations and influences at the time the work was written. So this is an interesting one to do if you're really interested in history and time periods and social situations. So you might want to pursue that as well. So I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.